Welcome to the Land Your Bet Sports Betting Show. NFL Week 9. Got a bunch of player prop looks here for you. These are all on the site already with the Swishland projections model on landyourbets.com. Ton going on the website right now with the NBA in action as well. So definitely want to make sure you check things out there. I'm not going to waste any of our time. So if that all sounds good, give this video a like. Let's get right into it. Let's start with a man who made a really nice return last week for the Packers. That was Christian Watson coming back from injury. Had a really nice game with Jordan Love. 4 receptions, 85 yards. So what does that tell you? That he is the deep threat, right? And this is a depleted wide receiver core, as we know. Even Matthew Golden now banged up as well. So in his first game back, he saw 63% of the air yards from Jordan Love. 21 yards per reception versus Pittsburgh. They're a little bit better than that. So I do think we go back to him, and I think the long reception is still really nice because this long reception is currently listed at a number lower than 21, which, like we said, was his average. And the air yards there mean he's really running those deep routes for Jordan Love, who doesn't have a ton of air yards on the season overall because he hasn't had that many deep threats, right? Like that many guys that can go deep for him that he trusts, since everybody in the wide receiver room besides Christian Watson right now feels like they're injured. So I like to start with him on the yards at the long reception. I think that's probably the yards are, 2 receptions, and he's definitely clear over his roughly 34.5 yard receiving prop. Tucker Kraft. I'm just sticking with the Packers for a minute. I know it's back-to-back guys talking about receiving, but like I said, depleted core here. That's why last week, Tucker Kraft saw so many receptions, so many targets, 143 yards, and the 2 tutties. And that's why the touchdown now is like plus 110. I don't know if I can get there with it, right? Once you start getting in this sort of range for a receiver, I'm out, no matter who the receiver is. And it's because he's averaging basically more than a touchdown a game at this point. And that makes sense. The red zone targets were there. He had 2 touchdowns. He had 4 red zone targets. I think he had like 10 or 12 targets alone. He is Jordan Love's favorite target when he's healthy, and he seems to be healthy now. I don't know that they're going to blow out Carolina. There's random games. There's some money coming in on Carolina here and there. So it does seem like there's enough passing that's going to be needed in this game, and they're not going to be able to just run 27 times. I'm sure Jacobs is going to get a bunch of touches in this one as well. It's why his yards prop is so high. But I do think that because of the way that the Carolina Panthers have struggled to defend tight ends anyway, and this is his favorite target, I think we got to at least look at Tucker Kraft. 56.5 yards is reasonable for his receiving. And the touchdown, unfortunately, I can't get with it. Maybe you add to a parlay or something. It seems super likely to happen, but I have no edge on it from the odds. Looking at another tight end here, the one for the Bears, Colston Loveland. And we do want to know what's going to happen with Cole Kmet. Don't have the full update. Doesn't seem like he's going to be a go this Sunday, though, the technically starting tight end for the Bears. I think Loveland was primed to take over at some point in the season anyway. And last week he saw his highest snap share, obviously without Kmet, 81%. So if he gets another scratch, you've got to imagine he's going to be up there for another 80+% of the snaps. And Cincinnati allows the second most receiving yards to tight ends on the season. This is going to be where I think Caleb Williams is able to go a bunch. I think we'll probably see a good amount of offense with 2 really bad defenses, which is going to lead to more passing. And even if Cole Kmet plays, I think 23.5 receiving yards is pretty reasonable for Loveland right now. The targets were there for him last week as well. So he's getting enough of the first reads that I think he is going to get some looks from Caleb Williams once again in a really good matchup, like we said. Let's look at CJ Stroud. We've been talking about his rushing, and like the model likes it once again. It's one of those things where like his rushing prop continues to rise because he keeps going over, right, week to week, but it's still in a really reasonable spot at 14.5 yards right now in this game. And the model has stayed ahead of it, right? When it was at 8.5, 9.5 rush yards, the model was like, well, we like this at about 14 yards. Every time it keeps creeping up, it stays ahead. And now we're looking at about 18, 19 yards on the projection for him on landyourbets.com on the Swishland model right there. So gotta like CJ Stroud once again, man, in a matchup where, yeah, I still expect him to receive the pressure. He's going to see a Broncos team that is tough to pass on. And when all else fails, you might as well get out there and run. And they're also really tough to run on. So it might not be the best day for the backs there for the Texans, but I expect a little bit of trickery to try to throw off that defense using CJ Stroud's legs. And then there's just going to be some plays where he has to scramble no matter what. And you expect him to be able to pick up those yards there. Not that many rush attempts. Last week he had 7. He's averaging about 4 on the season. I think that's good enough for him to get about 4 or 5 yards per carry. Back to a guy who's been really good for us, Kamani Vidal. Got to kind of pick your spots at times, know when the right moment is, but Haskins out again in this one, and the coaches just keep singing Kamani Vidal's praises coming out of LA. He runs angry was the latest sort of intel that they were talking about him after a presser there. And so I think we see another big workload coming. This is a Tennessee defense that is the worst rush defense, essentially. They get a ton of rushes against them because they're losing a lot, right? So there's positive game script likely incoming here for the Chargers again, which will lead to that workload workload. And then it's also just the weakest point of this team, second most rushing yards to running backs on the season. And I think the underlying metrics will show you that they're getting no push with their front four or front seven. And as a result, the Chargers with a healthy offensive line, we talked about this with Vidal last week when he went over 100 yards. Now the prop here is at about 70 yards for him on the rushing. So I'm still happy to take that over and just leave it as the core bet. No need to necessarily ladder this, but if you like the 100 plus, almost 2-1 on that number, I still think that's a pretty good look in this matchup. Another look here from the Swishland model is going to be Blake Corum. And I was going to come to this anyway, so I did like to go to the model and see, hey, it agrees with me that there's going to be another 7 attempts for Blake Corum. That's what you look at here, is that if there is a game that you expect the Rams to be up by a lot, Blake Corum should get more than 5 carries. In the games where they're close and they really need to squeak it out, he's looking at about a max or a ceiling of 5. But when they blow teams out of the water, like they beat Jacksonville good enough last week, they won the previous week like 35-7. Right? In those games, he's seeing more than the 5 carries. Last week, he saw 12, and that's against a really good rushing defense for Jacksonville. Just they weren't doing anything on offense themselves, and the Rams were controlling the clock, which is what we know McVay wants to do. And Kyren Williams is not necessarily a bad look, but if this game gets really out of control, like it might with the Saints, who seem like they've completely given up on the season and will be trotting a backup quarterback out there, although their starter's kind of a backup anyway in Rattler, right? So you get my point. The Saints are in for a tough week, and I think Blake Corum will be seeing a lot of action as a result. You already know No Vegas still the sportsbook of the week here on LandryBets.com. Going another week because everybody just keeps coming in on it. It is the sportsbook exchange that we're talking about here. So if you do want to sign up for this one, get yourself all the bonus bets using code LYB, and then just let us know that you did that, and we'll get you a free month using these projections and everything from Swishland on LandryBets.com. So this is a sportsbook exchange, not a traditional sportsbook. So you do bet against peers, not against the sportsbook. A lot of people do like that. It does give yourselves a little bit of an advantage. So just email us, support@LandryBets.com, if you sign up and you do want to get into the website there for a month for free. Let's get weird. Roman Wilson had an incredible game last week, and I don't know why this would go anywhere but up in terms of the way that he's been involved on the field and involved in the offense. 50% snaps last 2 weeks on average, right? And that's way up from what he was playing before. There's just a lot of opportunity now with this Steelers wide receiving room, just not really many guys in there, right? You got DK Metcalf and then a whole bunch of tight ends that are being thrown to for Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers right now. And they're now going up against the number 1 offense in the league in Indy, who's just throwing the ball over the field in addition to having probably the MVP right now with Jonathan Taylor. So I think Roman Wilson's going to be on the field another at least 50% of the snaps in this one. And that's just going to mean because they're needing to pass, right? So you're going to see a few more 3 wide receiver sets. He will be in the slot a bunch, little guy who's really, really good at getting open, getting really good separation last week in a game that we saw a lot of passes once again. And I think that's going to be the case here. The Steelers are going to have to match the Colts and on offense, and the defense for the Colts is weakest against the pass. So love the really low number here for Roman Wilson. I think he could get his prop in 1 catch there. It's at like 15 yards. And then from there, if you want a little alt play like 30 plus for him, that's a really good look coming off of 4 receptions for like 75 last week. Couple more looks at the model and what it's telling us. Jared Goff is going to have another good game. Stop trying to blitz Jared Goff. We talked about this last week. Loved him on the show. Brought him up for the touchdowns. Still like the yards, like the completions. I really like the yards once again, right? He is the best quarterback completion percentage wise and QB rating wise against the blitz. And it's Minnesota. It's Brian Flores. It means it's blitz time. And Minnesota first in blitz percentage, once again, usually going to be the case when Brian Flores is in charge of your defense. And oh, by the way, even if they don't blitz, this is also the number 1. This man has the number 1 completion percentage from a clean pocket, up above 80% when you give him time. So I do think they're going to have to sell out to stop the run for Minnesota. I talked about that with Nate on his video. If you want to make sure you check out his closing lines episode where he's talking about a bunch of the games he likes and some of his own player props. We talked about that earlier in the week, how Jared Goff and the Vikings specifically would have to really sell out against Gibbs and against Monty in this one. And that's only going to make it easier for Goff when they blitz and then leave guys open as a result. Let's talk about George Pickens for a minute, because I don't know who's 1A and who's 1B now with CD back, but he is the deep threat. And so that's why I still like the yards for him. The model's giving us a slight edge on the yards. I believe you can still get him at about 62.5 receiving yards right now as I record on Saturday, the day before the game. But this is going to be what the Dallas offense strategy needs to be. It needs to be pass against Arizona, who we've seen really sell out consistently to stop the run, have one of the better rush defensive EPAs, and one of the worst pass defensive EPAs. So that does mean on each play, you expect Dallas to really be successful in the pass game a lot more. And last week, that wasn't wasn't the case. They had a really nice time running against the Commanders, and I think we're going to see a little bit of the opposite of that here in this one. You're going to see a lot more targets. 8 targets is the projection for him, and with that number, with how deep he's running his routes, especially with CD back, which opens him up to just go down the sidelines especially, then yeah, I'm going to like him to get at least about 70 yards in this one. Travis Hunter, I don't have props for him right now, so I'm waiting on this for him, but I love everything for him. Everything we've seen so far, I don't think it's fool's gold, right, in the last few weeks. And it's been the last 3 weeks that he's just entrenched himself into this offense. 100% of the snaps now in the last 3 weeks, 80% of the routes, he's running those, 87%, I should say. And last week, the 14 targets, he also had 2 red zone targets. So, like, they're not scared to throw him the ball anywhere. At first, I was like, okay, they're going to use him in the middle of the field, running slants, and that's about it. But they've used him everywhere on the field, in the slot and otherwise, running deep routes, running short routes. Last week, we saw a lot nicer air yards for him. Still had 8 receptions in that game for 110. So he is good for the receptions a ton because he's obviously Trevor Lawrence feels really comfortable throwing to him over the middle and in short patterns, but his yak is out of control as well. So I don't mind the yards. Once we get it, I'd be playing this at like 60 plus for Travis Hunter. And I think that's probably going to be about where we see it when it's available again. All right, y'all, like I said, all of that is up on landyorbets.com for the model and all the projections we have coming out for the NFL. Have the same thing running for the NBA right now, so lots to look at on the site. Hope to see y'all there. Best of luck on Sunday, and until I do see you next, happy betting.